Hey guys, it's Kat and I am back today for a 1 week, 1 palette video. I had to recover for a couple of weeks from the Huda Beauty Nude Obsessions palettes because that review with the 9 looks took me about 3 weeks. So I'm ready, I am excited, and I've got 2 palettes that I want to test sort of by the end of the year, and one that I thought I'd start with because this has been released more recently is actually from XO Beauty. So XO Beauty is Shan XO's brand, and this is her first ever eyeshadow palette. So it's the Heaps of Sweets palette. It's a 12 eyeshadow palette. So I want to use this all week. I want to create different looks. And then by the end of the week, after I've used all shades and had a good idea of what I think about it, I want to let you know what I think about this palette overall. Now, you can buy this from the XO Beauty website. I actually was sent this from Glamraider. So Glamraider is a stockist of XO Beauty in Australia. I really like Glamraider. I find their shipping is phenomenal. They are just down the road from me, so I know that if I order something, I can get it the very next day. And they have a really good range of products as well, so you can order a whole bunch of different things. But about a couple of weeks ago, they had a birthday, and they sent Beauty News like a gift pack, which is to promote because they were doing gift packs and different days of sales, and this was in one of the gift packs, and Haley and I sort of split them. So I'm really excited to try this, but it was sent to me, just letting you know. But as per usual, I'm going to review it as though I bought it. So let's have a look at the palette. So when you do take the slip off, which has information on the back, it's got Shannon on the back, which is nice. You do have the palette, which is a cardboard palette. It's got the same sort of design with you know, cupcakes and lollipops and macarons and all that kind of stuff on it. And then on the back, it just has the website and the hashtag. So if you do throw away the slip, you do get rid of the ingredient information. But of course, you can find that on the website. This also states that it's vegan and cruelty free. So that's a good thing. So like I said before, it's a 12 pan eyeshadow palette, and each eyeshadow contains 1.6 grams. And a standard pan eyeshadow is generally about 1.5, sometimes to 2 grams. So this is sort of like getting a whole bunch of MAC eyeshadow singles. So there we go. What I really like about it is you've got a warm half and a cool half. It's very typical to Shannon's makeup. So if you do watch Shan XO, you'll understand that she really likes sort of warm shades, and she also likes purple shades. Right now, like, I don't love purples personally, but right now I really do love more sort of subtle eye makeup. I think I've sort of become a bit color fatigued. So like, for example, when I took a break after using the Huda palettes, which were nude anyway, I pretty much used this duo for a week, which was this. So you can see that I've sort of become a bit color fatigued. So this is sort of like a nice amount of color that I can see a lot of people buying, wearing to work, wearing after work, and really enjoying. So I think it's a very sort of safe palette to begin with, but also one that I think a lot of her fans would really appreciate. You can see it's got a good size mirror in there too, which is really nice. Everything's named, they're all named after like sweet things. So there's gumdrop, sugar, brownie, vanilla, lollipop, bonbon, pretzel, caramel, macaron, cupcake, apricot, hokey pokey. So we have a bunch of stuff in there, which is cool. So in Australia, this retails on Glamraider for 54 Australian dollars. But I had a look just, and I think on the XO Beauty one, it's about 52. So it's a couple dollars cheaper. But I think that might be because of conversion. I'm not too sure, because the price was a bit strange. It was like, it wasn't like a round number. So I think that might change from like day to day, week to week. I'm not too sure. But if you want to save a couple of bucks, you can get it from the XO Beauty website. But if you want sort of fast shipping, probably Glamraider is a good one to go to. But I'll do swatches of these on my just bare arm, so no primer or anything. And then we'll do the first look on camera so you can see how it applies. And then I'll come back and I'll check in throughout the week with the different looks I create from this, and then conclude what I think. So that's how this is going to go. All right, we've got the first 4 shades here. So the first one is Gumdrop. Oh, that's a beautiful matte. That applied really, really nicely. We have Sugar, which looks more like a sparkly topper shade. So sort of like an iridescent champagne light pink shade. We have Brownie, which is also a matte. This is a beautiful sort of cool toned brown. And we've got Vanilla, which is a nice sort of cool toned transition color, transition color. Didn't say that very well. So I'll just put a little bit more of vanilla on just so you can see what it looks like in a full swatch. And that's actually the pigment left behind on my fingers. So you can see that they are very, very pigmented and they do apply quite smoothly. This brown sort of, I don't know, applied a little bit patchy, but I feel like that was just how it applied. It looks like it blends out quite nicely. All right, next row, and I actually really love that color combination. It looks really, really beautiful. So we have Lollipop, which is a beautiful shimmery purple. It's not sparkly, it's just like a smooth shimmer. It's a really, really nice tone. It's got a bit of sort of pink to it, so almost looks a bit purpley magenta. Then we have Bonbon, which is a purple matte. This is more of that smoky dark plum, which I really, really love in look, so that's great. Then we have Pretzel, which is like a metallic copper shade. Easy, really pretty. And Caramel. There we go, that one applied really nicely. So that's just like a burnt orangey matte shade, which is really pretty as well. All right, last row, we've got Macaron, which is like a nice nude transition color. So I'll pick up a little bit more. Okay, here's a little bit more. These almost look like they've got a bit of a satin finish to them to help them to blend. But in the pan, it looks quite similar to this one over here, Vanilla. But in reality, it's more peachy and sort of more true skin toned rather than sort of mauve toned. Then we've got Cupcake, which is a beautiful taupe. So that has a little bit of purple tones to it, a little bit of warmth to it, but a little bit of silver to it as well. So that's really pretty. Then we've got Apricot, which almost looks duochrome. It looks like it's peachy with a bit of a gold shift to it. Really pretty. And the last one is Hokey Pokey. So this is also a shimmery. This is like a very yellow gold. So there we go. We've got, you can go some bright colors with these and sort of like this one and that one, or you go really muted, which is nice variety. They all swatch really, really nicely. I'm excited to try them. All right, after swatching these, I'm actually really impressed. I like the mix of the mattes and the shimmers. I think the balance is really nice. But the colors I really want to sort of play with today are the purples and those sort of warm sort of tones, the copper and the sort of orangey color. I just think that they, I don't know, when I saw them on the fingers, I was like, that combination looks really nice. And I really want to demonstrate something that sort of looks a little bit more exciting than just going brown. So that's what I'm going to start with today. So as per usual, I'm going to go in with my Bare Minerals Gen Nude Primer. This is purely because it's a Project Pan primer and I'm trying to use it up. It's not my favorite one, but it does work. So I'm just going to apply that. And I'm just blending that out with whatever brush I don't like using for eyeshadows. So any leftover brushes I have, like this Sigma Precision round brush that I don't use, I use to blend the primer. Now I normally don't put eyeshadow primer on my lower lash line, but I'm just gonna run whatever excess I have on my brush on my lower lash line. You can definitely put primer on your lower lash line. I just find that eyeshadow sort of lasts there pretty well. Also, I find if I put too much primer on, it can sort of like mess with my concealer, so I try to just avoid it. All right, one thing I've noticed about this palette is there's no matte cream shades, which is totally fine. I think people sort of have so many of them, they don't need them, but I do like to set my crease with something if I've just put my primer on. So I'm gonna go with this shade here, which is closest to my skin tone. Now these are quite soft, but they don't kick up heaps and heaps. There's a bit of kick up in the pan, but nothing crazy. So this is just a Morphe M441. It's just a fluffy brush and I'm just putting that in the crease. You can see that that just adds a little bit of color in the crease and a little bit of fluff. And that's a really nice color. It really pairs nicely. Hang on, I'll try to turn this brightness down a bit so you can see. Really pairs nicely with my skin tone. Didn't need too much tap off because it doesn't seem like it's just shedding product. And it just gives a really nice shadow to my eye. So I don't have it there, but I've got it there. So I really like that color. Smooth, you can definitely see it. So it's pigmented, but it's not like super intense. I really like it. Okay, so just to revise, I'm going to be using that middle row, which is great. It's got two mattes, it's got two shimmers. I really like the balance. You can see here that the palette is half matte, half shimmer, which is my perfect balance. So you've got 3 shimmers, 1 matte, 3 mattes, 1 shimmer. I really, really love that. It's my favorite split. And once again, I really like that there's sort of like warm toned, there's cool toned, but you have some sort of more like traditional neutral shades. So if you want to go really, really nude, there's those two and those two that sort of do it for you. So I really, really like this layout. But I'm usually, when I use colors that is this different, I like to sort of separate them either like half eye, or one like top lid and bottom lid. So often I'll like to go warm top lid and then like purple lower lash line. But today I sort of want to mix them together if possible. So I'm going to start with Pretzel, which is the copper shade. I'm going to use this on a Kaleidos brush. This is the S4 brush, and I'm just going to see if I can pick that up. That's very, very, ooh, it's quite nice to pick up. And these are quite sort of almost buttery metallic. So let's see how they stick to the eye. Sometimes these have a bit of issue. Yeah, it just needs a little bit of work getting it on the eye. Maybe a bit of a fluffier brush would have worked a bit better. Maybe I'll swap brushes. So I've got a bit of a flat brush here, but it also is still quite fluffy. I really love these types of brushes for applying shimmers. Sometimes people criticize me, they're like, why are you using a fluffy brush to apply eyeshadow that is a shimmer? Use a flat brush. I actually find that sometimes these pick up the product better and lay them on smoother. There might be a little bit of fallout, but I just find that it's easier to use. So this brush is a synthetic brush. It's by the brand Elysium, and it's the Elva brush made in Italy. So I'm going to go and try with that one. I feel like it picks up the product a little bit better. Sometimes those dispersed bristles just pick up the shimmer a little bit better. And let's see if it applies it better. Yeah, I think this one applies it a little bit better. So I'm going to stick with this one. Okay, this is actually a really beautiful warm shade. There's a little bit of fallout happening because I'm using this style of brush, which is fine. I'd prefer to flick off fallout than struggle applying it. But this is one that you could probably put on a glitter glue. You can probably put it on wet. You can probably put it on with your finger to get a more metallic finish, but I do want to try it with brushes. This one's a quite an interesting shade because swatched it looked really, really orange, but applied to the eye, it's a really beautiful warm shade. So I do like warm sort of browns and whatnot, but I sometimes find that oranges can go so extreme. But this one sort of pulls back when you put it on the eye, which I really do like. So once again, I've got a little bit of fallout, but you can just sort of dust it away with not any issue. So I'm totally fine with that. All right, using the same brush, which I've just wiped off on a color switch, I'm going for Lollipop, which is that shimmery purple shade. This one I'm putting straight on. Once again, I'm not tapping this off because I want this to be quite concentrated. But if you wanted to avoid fallout, do tap a bit of it off. That is a lot more, I don't know, I just sort of always think the purples don't apply very nicely. They take a bit of effort, but this one applies really smoothly and it transitions really nicely to that copper shade. So I really, really like this color because it's not as sort of metallic. It's more like your traditional shimmer. It applies a little bit smoother and requires less sort of packing on to build up the color, but it's a beautiful, beautiful sort of pinky toned purple, which I really dig. Discovered a little bit more of that copper fallout here. Just get rid of it with a fluffy brush. Might actually put a little bit more in the outer corner to make it more like a halo eye. I was going to put some of the matte purple here and I will do that. But I really like this combination of the sort of copper and the purple shimmer. I think they look really nice. Like you could almost get an effect where it looks like it's a duochrome, that it's like caught the light looking copper, but really it's a purple. So you can sort of mimic that effect by doing this sort of look. Just getting a little bit of fallout from that. So once again, if you want to avoid fallout, just tap off your brush, but I sort of want to get the intensity and then just sweep away any excess. I've got a little bit of that copper on the eye because I feel like I've lost a little bit of it. So I'm just tapping a little bit back into it just to intensify it a little bit. Just right on the center part of the lid. Now back with that original fluffy brush that I used to put the first color down, the Morphe one. I've just wiped this off on a color switch and I'm going to get the shade. I might actually go back in with a macaron, tap it off a little bit and put a bit of color and just to help it blend on the inner corner here. So just that sort of, you know, sort of nudie shade, that matte. Then with the same brush again, I'm going in with the shade Bonbon. So this is the purple. I need to tap this off because it is quite powdery, as you can see. So I've just tapped a little bit of the excess off and I'm going just in the crease, mainly in the outer half. I'm starting with a small amount because I don't want to blend away the copper too much, but I do want it to sort of blend into that purple really nicely. All right, I'm finding that color does blend really nicely. There are sections where it catches the skin a little bit and there's a little bit of skipping, but otherwise that purple, just a small amount of it really adds a nice depth to the eye. I don't know if we can see it. This lighting's getting a bit shitty on me. All right, that matte purple was surprisingly quite punchy. Like just with a small amount, it really did add a lot of depth to the look, and it was quite easy to blend. There was a sort of section where I was sort of skipping on the skin, but it wasn't, the formula isn't patchy where it puts like a lot of pigment in one area and not in other areas. It was just that I needed to sort of blend it a bit better over the skin. I'm going in with that more firm brush. This is that Elysium one that I was talking about. And I just want to see if I can build up that color just in the outer corner, because I'm just wanting to see how this builds, and it does actually build quite nicely because it all seemed to sort of diffuse out really nicely, but it wasn't really building much with the fluffy brush, but it definitely builds nicely with a firmer brush. So yeah, this is a really nice color. All right, now I've got another brush. This is from Quartz Beauty. It's the Crease Definer. So this is a beautiful example of a brush that's a little bit fluffy, a little bit flat, good to apply eyeshadow with. I like these. But I've got that matte warm shade and I'm gonna run that on my lower lash line just to get a bit of contrast going on. I really wanna use that shade. Oh, boogie's in a bag. So I did tap this off so I don't have too much fallout, but again, it's a really pigmented matte, but not so pigmented that it's hard to apply and apply a small amount, but you can definitely get the color pay off pretty quickly and it does blend really nicely. Again, this one looks like, okay, on camera it looks quite orange. In person it looks like a really, really, really warm brown. So I feel like, again, I probably like this a little bit more than I was expecting because in the swatch and in the pan, it looks quite orange, but when you do apply it to the eye, you can see that it does have more sort of nude tones to it, which I like. I want to put a bit of brightness in the on the middle and maybe on the inner corner, and I'm actually thinking of going in with a shade Sugar. All right, I've just picked up on that shadow on an Eco Tools. This is the Micro Smudge Brush, and I just want to put a little bit, I feel like the mirror is blocking the camera. I'm going to put a little bit just on the inner part here for a bit of sparkle, just to sort of mimic the brightness happening there, and a tiny bit on the inner corner just to brighten that area a bit. All right, I don't think this is working how I wanted it to work. I think it's a very, very pretty on the inner corner, but where I put it here, it's too close to there, so it sort of looks like it's connecting. So I'm going to continue putting it on the inner corner, but I think I might put another color just on the lower lash line in the middle. This is a really beautiful topper shimmer. So you can see that it's just like a really soft sparkle. It doesn't add much color, just adds a different finish and a bit of brightness. And I really like these sort of topper shades for inner corner. So it's not too frosty, but it adds a little bit of twinkle and brightness, which I think is really pretty. All right, I'm gonna try again, just with the same brush. I've wiped it off. I'm gonna use that apricot shade, and I'm just running a little bit on the lower lash line to add a bit of shimmer there, just to sort of mimic the top. This shade actually works really, really beautifully with that matte orange. They sort of complement each other really well. All right, so we've used a bunch of colors. We've used some purples, we've used some mattes, we've used some shimmers, coppers, oranges, sort of apricot, and that sort of sparkly shade. So these remind me of sort of like wet look highlighters. They just give that little wet effect, which I really dig. So I'm gonna do some eyeliner and some mascara and probably half lashes and come back to you and let you know how it looks. All right, this is a completed look with liner, mascara, and some half lashes. So what I've done is I put my Rimmel Kohl Kajal pencil in brown just on my waterline. I used my Project Pan ColourPop Swerve gel liner to create a wing. Then I used, I'm trying to use this up, the Superhero mascara from IT Cosmetics on the top lash line. And because that's too clumpy for the lower lash line, I went in with the MAC False Lashes mascara, which is not false lashes at all, but it does look really nice on the lower lash line. And then I put just half lashes on it just to, yeah, because I'm going to be filming later. So yeah, but I really like this look. I'm really surprised at how nicely the colors have come together. I think they really warm up the eye. I think they give a nice amount of color. I think it's a really, really pretty look. So yeah, this is a look. Look down, there we go, look up. All right, so on first impressions, I'm actually very excited to use this throughout the week. I think this look is really, really pretty. I thought I sort of did a slight challenge to myself to see if sort of these colors and these colors can work well together in one look, and the answer is yes, they can. So I am actually really looking forward to my week with this because the colors aren't my favorite colors. Like, I don't personally use pinks and purples and yellow golds on a daily basis, but I also think that the look it created was very, very flattering, and probably more flattering than other colors that I've used in this sort of color palette. So I think they've done a really, really fantastic job. All right, I'm back with look number 2, and today I wanted to go for something quite bold because we're filming beauty news soon and you sort of need bold makeup to stand out on camera. So I wanted bold, but nothing that's competing with the red lip. So I'm wearing NARS Red Square. So I decided to go for sort of a cool eye with a pop of warmth on the inner corner just to sort of balance it out. So I did use some of the same shades from yesterday, but the color all over my lid is a new one. So I used this in the crease just to set my base. I did actually use glitter glue because I didn't have much time to do my makeup. I didn't want to like deal with packing on a shimmer and dealing with fallout, so I just used the Too Faced glitter glue, and it just like sucked onto the shimmers really easily and they applied beautifully. So I set the crease with this, then I applied this shade all over the lid, so that's the main color on the lid. I also put that on the lower lash line. Then I blended it out, so I deepened the crease a little bit with this shade. I think it's called Vanilla, up in the corner. I put a little bit of the purple, the matte purple that I really like, on the outer corner just to make it a bit more smoky. I did that on the lower lash line as well, and I went in with this peach shade just to add a little bit of warmth because it was looking very cool. This sort of look you could definitely, if you wanted to keep it cool, use this shade on the inner corner, but I just wanted something that, I don't know, balanced the cool look with a little bit of warmth. So that's why I paired these sort of colors with this one. All right, so hopefully you can see that taupe color all over the lid. It applied really, really nicely on the glitter glue. The shades I used to blend it out worked really nicely as well. So those browns and that purple really complemented each other. The purple on the lower lash line was really pretty as well. And then just that shimmer peach just to sort of brighten it and add a little bit of warmth back in to sort of neutralize it. And I really like this look. I think it's really pretty. Again, like yesterday, I just used a black liner and mascara and some half lashes because we're filming, but I'll be back tomorrow with a much more nude look because I'll be editing all day. So it'll look very different to this. So look number 3, this one is a lot more nude than the last couple because I'm just editing today, so it's just a day at home. So the shades that I used, they're all shades that I've used before, but I used this in the crease, and I was originally going to put that all over the lid as just a matte brown look and then add a little bit of that shade in the crease just to deepen it. One thing I did notice was the mattes aren't really pigmented enough to look bold on the lid. So when I did put this all over the lid, it just didn't really do much. So I do think the mattes seem like they're more crease colors or blending colors. I don't really feel like they're pigmented enough, pigmented enough to really create a bold look on its own unless you sort of really pack it on with your finger, which I didn't really want to do. I just wanted to see if it applied quite boldly on its own, and I don't think this shade really did. I had to modify the look a little bit. So I ended up putting that in the crease and tried to put on the lid and the lower lash line. I deepened it a little bit with this, so in the outer corner and lower lash line. And then I took this shade and I just put it on most of the lid just to add a bit of brightness. So that was a look. So that one, and that one. Again, the mattes blended really nicely in the crease and sort of packed on the outer corner just a little bit, but as like a bold color on the lid, they just didn't really work that well. So I reckon they're definitely more of a completing a look sort of shadow rather than being its own look. And then you can see the sort of twinkly shimmer shade there that I've just sort of put on with a flat brush with a bit of mascara and a bit of liner on my waterline. So very, very basic look, but it did, teach me a little bit about the mattes. All right, so I'm back for another sort of bold look because today is another long filming day. We're doing some sort of like holiday filming, so we're doing extra filming days. So what I might do in the next couple of looks is tone them down a bit more and have more sort of everyday makeup that I'd wear, because even though this is not unwearable, it's definitely not makeup that I'll just do for a daily sort of look. So yeah, it's been overwhelmingly filming makeup this week. Anyway, I probably had my biggest struggle with this palette today, and the look that I created today is actually the second look I created because I had to take the first look off. It was driving me crazy. And it really frustrated me and created a crap look, and I didn't want to. Usually I can make difficult sort of eyeshadows or looks that are going bad, I can sort of bring them back to life and fix them, but this time around I'm like, no, I have to wipe it all off and start again. So I'll explain what I did and where it went wrong, and then tell you what I did instead. So I should have showed you what I started with, but I'm pressed for time, so Haley will be here in like 5 to 10 minutes, so I didn't really have time to sit down and be like, look at what I created, it's a mess, it's shit. So I couldn't do that. But essentially what I did was I wanted to try the pink. I wanted to put this sort of metallic bronze color and the gold together to make sort of like sunsetty effect. So I wanted to try that over normal primer and once again see how these shimmers go over normal primer. And I tried this all over the lid, it just didn't stick. So once again, it's one of those sort of flakier formulas that don't blend nicely over the eye, which was a real struggle. So after trying for a few minutes to get it on the eye with a brush and with a finger, I decided to spray my brush with some finishing spray and try to apply it foiled, so apply it wet. Now I did apply quite boldly wet, I did have to sort of pack it on still, but I found that, and this is another issue that I have with foiling eyeshadows and why I tried to avoid it, sometimes it creates this sort of like paint effect on the eye that makes your eyelids look really puckered and textured, and it was hard. So I thought I'd sort of cover it up by putting a bit of the gold on the inner corner, the pink in the outer corner to make sort of like a sunset effect, and it looked okay. The texture on the lid was really, really bad. I even tried to minimize that sort of foiled, crinkly, sort of crunchy look by putting a little bit of glitter glue over the top and putting more of that on the top again. So I applied it with a brush, I applied it with my fingers, I applied it foiled, I applied it over glitter glue, and it was just looking really sort of heavy and cakey and horrible. When I went in with my liner was when I thought this is it, because I couldn't get a smooth line. The line just looked really jagged because it was over the textured lid, and it was just an absolute mess. So I had to wipe all of that off, and I decided to not use this one because it was driving me bananas. So I went for more of a brown look using sort of this and this shade as a bit of a pop of color. So what I did was I started with glitter glue because that's how I find you get the best effect from these sort of shimmers. So I put the glitter glue down, I put the gold on the inner corner. I then patted some of this matte on the rest of the lid, some of this dark brown, which I haven't used yet. This is the first time using it. In the outer corner of the lid, so it's a lot more sort of golden brown. So I did the same thing on the lower lash line with the gold, that vanilla matte, and then the dark brown matte. And then for a pop of pink, because the pink actually does apply really nicely. I find that these two shades, they're nicely pigmented and they do blend quite nicely. So I did want to add a little bit of the pink. I put a bit of the pink in the outer corner just to like give it a little bit of color. So whereas the look that I created last time was more of a sort of sunset look, a lot more colorful, but it just was textured and horrible. This one I've decided to mute it down with some of the matte browns instead of this color here, because I just could not be bothered giving this one another go. So I'll zoom in so you can see what I've done. But yeah, this is definitely the day where this was the hardest to use, and I'm quite frustrated with it because I don't think a shimmer should be that hard, and using a shimmer shouldn't ruin a look. So hopefully you can see that gold on the inner corner that was applied quite boldly because like I said, I've got some glitter glue on. Also, I've got that sort of taupe matte that applied quite boldly again compared to yesterday because it was on a glitter glue, so it really stuck to the eye rather than sort of just not really applying very well. I mixed the dark brown and the vanilla into the crease, so I just blended that in. Did a similar thing on the lower lash line, and then you can see the pop of pink. So right in the corner where you would normally put like the darkest color, I wanted to put that bright matte pink, and I think it did a really good job because it sort of made it look a little bit more berry, which I thought was a bit fun. So it's a sort of more wearable way to wear pink. I'm not a huge pink fan in clothes, in anything, so but here I am with pink nail polish. But I just thought that was a really nice way to add a little bit of color without it being too colorful and bold. And I think you can probably see it a little bit better on this eye. Just ran it on the lower lash and just in the corner and blended it out a little bit. And then I just finished it off with some brown liner on my waterline, brown gel liner, and mascara and some lashes. So that's the look. All right, we're back for a little bit more of a toned down look, but still a little bit more amped up than the sort of like really, really nude look that I did the other day. So I wanted to try the browns because I do love brown eyeshadow. So I used a different primer today. So I used a NARS eyeshadow primer. I do think it works a little bit better than the Bare Minerals one. But I think that this eyeshadow is just a little bit more smoother to apply than this one. So I get the vibe that these sort of three down the bottom are a lot smoother than this one, but I do still want to give this one another go. Maybe tomorrow I'll do a sort of similar look, but I'll use sort of like some of these shades to create more of a warm look. And I want to try this with a different primer. So I still think that one's a flakier formula and hard to get nice and smooth, but this taupe shade was quite easy to apply just on the NARS primer, which was really, really nice. I blended it out with this and also that in the crease, and then I added a little bit of depth to the outer corner and the lower lash line with this shade here. So on my lower lash line, I've got this all over, and then that just in the outer corner. And it's just a sort of smoky brown look, which I really do like. One thing I am sort of missing from this palette is potentially something between these two. So I do like a brown all over the lid color, but I like it to be more of a sort of cool tone bronze. And I'm just finding that using this palette, even though I do like the color combinations, I am sort of missing a bronze that I would use all over my lid every day. I find these a bit too bright and colorful for what I like to use on a daily basis. This is a little bit sort of gives a bit of a smoky vibe. I would have liked something, yeah, sort of like a, I'll find an example. So I guess something more along the lines of this sort of bronzy color, because this does lean quite cool toned on me. I would like something that's not as warm as these, but is sort of this tone. So I am missing that, but that's just the sort of eyeshadow I like to wear on a daily basis. And you know, it's not here. It is what it is. So hopefully you can see it's just a fairly basic look. So I've got the taupe brown, I've got the browns to blend it out. I've got a brown liquid liner. I've put an olive liner on my waterline. I just think it sort of adds a little bit more color to the look. But I really like this sort of tone of brown, because you can see it sort of makes my eyes look a lot warmer, like my eye color. Whereas when I wear really, really light colors, it makes my eyes look really, really dark, and it almost looks a little bit beady, and my skin looks really puffy. So I do like the sort of effect that these browns give, and these applied really nicely over the NARS primer. I like the look. A little bit more bold than I was expecting to go, but I think it's pretty. All right, we're back with look number 6, and this is sort of like just the middle of the road sort of makeup that I would do. I've just been editing all day today. I've got a bit of a bloodshot eye from editing too much, so ignore that when we do a close-up. But I wanted to do more of a warmer look using some of that sort of warm corner here. So I did that sort of brown look last time, which was actually a couple of days ago now, and I wanted to do a similar thing to see how the warm sort of corner goes in a more nude look. So I did use a normal primer. I did want to give this one another crack. It still didn't apply very well over a normal primer. It's a little bit of a frustrating shade, but I did also pair it with this peach shade down here. So I pretty much put this shade in the outer corner, this mainly all over the lid and on the inner corner, and then I used this matte shade on the outer corner and just to sort of blend it out. So it is quite an orangey look. I did find that that peach shade, apricot shade, sorry, applies a lot smoother than pretzel. Pretzel is probably the difficult one from the palette, in my opinion, but it just created a warm sort of, basic sort of look. So we'll zoom in. All right, so hopefully you can see that it just created, like I said, just a basic warm look. There's not much pretzel on the outer corner because it just didn't stick very well. And I'm not sure if you can see, but it just looks a little bit light and not very bold. Like it looks sort of, I don't know, a little bit patchy on the eye. I also think that the main colors you can see is the apricot and the matte. I really think that pretzel color sort of just disappeared. So to get most out of that look, you do need to apply it over something that's really sticky. This was just over a basic primer. It wasn't set, it was directly on the primer, and it just didn't really grip to the eye very well, but it is just your basic sort of warm look. All right, I'm back for my 7th and final look from this palette, and today I decided to go a little bit more cool toned. I wanted to hit up this side again because I felt like I haven't sort of delved in here for a little while, so I decided to go more of a cooler toned, nudie sort of purple look. So all I did was I placed that on the center part of the lid. I placed this shade on the inner part of the lid, same as the lower lash line. And then I used this dark purple on the outer corners and in the crease. It was looking quite purple, so I just jumped in with a little bit of dark brown just to sort of neutralize it down a little bit. So I've only used those shades. They all applied really nicely over normal primer. This shimmer is a nice one. I think the problematic one is just that one, so it's not too bad. But I'll zoom in, show you the look I created, and then what I'll do is I'll conclude what I think about this palette. All right, so hopefully you can see that I've got a mix of the sort of purple taupe and that shimmery shade. I really do like that shimmery shade. I think I like it a little bit more of a wash of color like I've got on the inner corner. I did try to pack it on the lid a little bit and it looked a little bit icy, so I ended up sort of mixing it a bit with the taupe, like overlapping it. Like I said, I did add a little bit of brown just to add a little bit more warmth back to the purple in the outer corner because it was looking quite vibrant purple, but I want it to be a little bit more muted. And then what I did was I used a gel liner, a purple gel liner on my top lash line and my waterline, bit of mascara, half lashes because I'm filming beauty news. And yeah, that's it. That's a nice sort of like cool toned, silvery but not too harsh sort of nudie purple eye, taupe nude purple eye, whatever. All right, so after using this for a whole week, I do have thoughts about the palette. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid palette. I think in every look that I created, I quite liked. I did have, like I said, this put up a little bit of a fight. I do think it was the exception and not the rule, however. So I do think this shade is particularly flaky. It requires quite a lot of building. If you try to pack it on too much, there'll be fallout. So the best way to use it is with a really sticky base or a glitter glue. But I found that the other shimmers worked really nicely. I didn't use this one too much. It's not really my color. Same as the really yellow gold. I only use them sort of as a pop of color, so I can't really describe how they apply all over the lid because they're not colors that I would use all over the lid. But I do think this mixture of colors is really beautiful. Like if this shade was, I think the thing that gets me about this shade being not a great formula is that it is a shade that I would reach for quite regularly. So similar to today, how I use this shade all over sort of on the main part of the lid, and then I added little parts to it to sort of build on it. So this is sort of like the foundation color that I'm quite comfortable with. And then I just add little colors just to sort of make it a little bit more different. I would see that this shade in the palette is the sort of foundation shade for a lot of looks on the warmer side. So because the formula isn't great, it was quite disappointing to me because it would have been one of the most reached for shades in the palette if it wasn't for the formula. So that's why I think I was quite disappointed by it. But everything else seemed to work really nicely. And what I think is the best thing about this palette is that all shades work well together. So you could literally just close your eyes, throw a dart at like 3 or 4 colors, and they will work well together. I think that's quite rare in eyeshadow palettes these days. I feel like a lot of companies will just go, oh, these are trendy colors, or I really, putting the pop of blue or the pop of teal or the pop of green is really trendy, so we're gonna do it. But I think this is one of the few palettes that I've seen that you can use any combination of any shades and it will create a really beautiful look. So even though they do look quite different and you've got the cool and you've got the warm, you could easily pair this with this or that with that or that with that, whatever it might be. You can just go anywhere and it will create a beautiful look. And that is what makes a palette versatile, and that's what I like the most about this. So even though the colors aren't my perfect colors, because I don't really like pinks and vibrant purples, I don't really like really yellow toned sort of golds, they're not really my cup of tea. I much prefer the cooler tone browns and the mossy greens and a few of those sort of colors. I do really appreciate what Shannon's done with this palette, and I think the formula is good. Is it amazing? Not really, but it's pretty good. And I think the main problematic shade is this one, but you know, 1 out of 12 isn't the worst thing in the world. Like I said, it's just a little bit disappointing for me because it's a shade that I'd probably reach for quite often. So if these colors inspire you, I do probably recommend it. I think it's a fairly easy to use palette. It doesn't have like amazing pigmentation, but at the same time, it doesn't have a lot of fallout issues that palettes that have a lot of pigmentation have. So I find that often with eyeshadows, you can sort of want everything out of an eyeshadow, but to get something high in one area, you sort of have to go low on the other. So for example, really pigmented eyeshadows, often they're quite soft and they have a lot of kick up and a lot of fallout, and they can be quite hard to blend. So I find this one has a nice balance where it's enough pigmentation, it's easy to sort of to blend and apply, except for that one pretzel shade. So I feel like this is a palette that I think beginners can use and people that are quite advanced at makeup can use and enjoy. It's definitely not my favorite formula, but I do think it's a really solid first palette. And like I said, if you like the colors, you'll create some really beautiful looks with this. I do think that to get the most out of the shimmers, you're gonna have to get a glitter glue or a really sticky base, but it's a really pretty palette. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. I do have hopefully one more of these reviews that I'll do by the end of the year, which means by the end of the month. But I have the Naked Honey palette that's the next on my chopping block to review. So a few people have been asking me if I have picked that up and what I think about it. I did pick it up. I haven't used it yet. So we shall see in a 1 week review. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.